Alright, folks, so this is Acid Roots. I'm going to review 303's debut album, 303. So, um, yeah, these guys were from Colorado. They based their name off their area code. And they do electronic style. I looked them up on Wikipedia, and it also said that they do crunkcore also. So they do crunkcore also. So the similarities to them, they came out a little bit sooner than Broken Side and Hollywood Undead, and some of them at least broke out on like CD format. But a lot of those bands kind of toured together and that sort of stuff. But considering for 2007, I definitely felt like, compared to the stuff that I was listening to back in those days, that this was definitely a breath of fresh air. Now, obviously, the quality of this album is somewhat lacking. It's not going to get a perfect score or even 2/3 of that, but just to kind of say I liked what they were doing, and it was original for the time being. So that's kind of where I came up with it, for me to simply say, well, obviously you would think just winning points for originality, that would make it enough. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of flaccid. It's not necessarily like it's electronic music, but it kind of reminds me of like the game Guitar Hero, how you would go to different venues, and as you progress, you'd get to larger ones. That's kind of evident with this project. It did not feel like this particular album was meant to be played in like, VIP clubs and for 2,000, 3,000 people venues and such. And it's noticeable. I mean, that's the thing. You can tell that the budget is not the maximum of what it needed, and this album really looked like it had no intentions of charting. So I think in some cases these guys may not have even made these records at a studio, just as much as like a house or just near a basic laptop or computer or something like that, which is why I like it. I mean, don't think that I need the budget and I need like the bells and whistles and all that. It's the same reason why I liked the Millionaires last year, and Deuce and some of those fellows like Broken Side, is just because I kind of like that low key stuff to begin with. But um, so yeah, it just kind of gives off a vibe if you're just looking for like a minor shindig. I mean, obviously they got larger later with songs with Kesha and Katy Perry, but they kind of vanished after about 2012, 2013 or so. So they did put out some more albums, but mostly it was just like the early Obama years that they kind of were flashy and vicarious. But yeah, I just would have to say, I like the idea behind this project, but we'll talk about the singles now. So obviously in the re-release, I mean, the original album that came out had 11 songs, which I was kind of wanting that would have happened, but the re-release, which is the version that Spotify has, only has 8 songs. So 3 songs that got snipped were Dance With Me, Choke Chain, and then Holler Till You Pass Out. And I can at least think that I probably would have liked Holler Till You Pass Out. That's especially considering that was released as a single. That was basically their first single that they released, so I would have liked to have seen that one. But to talk about Electroshock, which is the single that basically the only promotion for this project that there is, apparently there was a music video, but I would just have to say that is one of the most polished and best sounding songs on here. I mean, that's the thing. You get some of these, they kind of lack direction. They're kind of aimless. They don't really have like official feel. It feels more like something you'd get on like a free mixtape, or you'd find at some club where someone's trying to promote something and they have, they're just selling it out of the trunk of their car or something. But it's kind of, I mean, it just feels like this record was kind of borderline making it to like official release. And but Electroshock does not have that feel. It still feels relatively tame compared to some of the stuff not only that they would do, but also that was kind of around. But once again, the originality kind of kicks in. I liked it. I mean, that was the thing. Those Get Drunk and David Guetta and Kesha type songs were not quite here yet in like the summer and winter of 2007. So that's just kind of the thing, is just to say that. So yeah, so it's good, but that's about the only promotions that just kind of leads for me to relatively talk about, like you know the rest of the album. Seeing as there's only 8 songs on here, I mean, I liked half of it, so I'll just give you the other songs I recommend to you. Don't Dance is probably the second best song on here besides Electroshock, and then Hot, and then Not I'm Not Coming to Your Party Girl, the other two. So Electroshock, Don't Dance, Hot, and I'm Not Coming to Your Party Girl. All of those kind of sound like something, if you're just having like a quick get together, some dance party, some shit like that, I would definitely kind of say that. So it kind of works to your favor and such. But yeah, I just would have to, virtually say that, just as far as talking about like 4 songs out of 8, I mean, they're mostly just kind of off to the side songs. I mean, they get the job done, but I think if this is the only artillery that you have up your sleeve, you may not make it through the night or whatever endeavor you're trying to reach. I mean, it's definitely valid in the sense of what it does, but it just doesn't have nearly enough of the goodness to sit there and help. I mean, I would have just taken songs like Don't Dance. I mean, I think it was just relatively new as far as what they were doing, but Don't Dance and Electroshock, and then trying to replicate that like another 10 times, obviously trying something new, but then trying to have that same variety. I mean, sometimes that's difficult. So that's kind of the main thing, was some of those records just did not have like the same punch, and they felt like half baked compared to some of the best songs. But so yeah, I would give this album a 5 out of 10. I just would have to say, obviously I could talk about like, you know, I mean, because it's good, but I mean, 8 songs and only liking 4. I mean, obviously they should have just left the other songs on there, because I probably would have given it like a 6 if I would have meant to say that I liked Holler Until You Pass Out. I mean, if that would have been on there and they would have snipped like Horns or Dragon Backpack or one of those, lacking songs, I would have probably preferred that. But for what it was, I mean, it is solid. It's just like how the the Broken Side album hit me like a ton of bricks last year. I mean, it is infectious, but um, just the fact that it was kind of new and the debut project. I mean, as the budget kind of came along, obviously they knew the style that they were getting and they polished it further. But yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the thing. I mean, the more I think about it, when I sit there and talk about like their future albums, even though like the promotion probably got better, I might actually appreciate this album more. I simply would have wanted to take more songs from their MySpace days more so than get the stuff where the label was telling them what to do and that sort of thing. So that's kind of like the main thing there. All those records, I mean, the Millionaires have songs that we'll probably never hear again, just because once they deleted them from MySpace, they're just kind of gone for good, unless they're floating around on YouTube or somewhere. But that's just kind of the thing. So it's one of those things. That's kind of why I tend to like the MySpace music that came out between like 2006 and 2010 or so, is because you got to kind of see some of those that just, and that was just kind of the subject of it, was just trying to do that. But for what it was, I just would have to say, I do appreciate the project, but I was kind of like, it makes me wonder how well they knew what was going to work and what didn't, because it felt like it was kind of trying to, pump out more things rather than focusing on what they knew was good. So that's just kind of, I mean, obviously that may sound like I'm being too much of a complainer, but I know that they probably at least had some degree of tone deaf type stuff to tell if they were doing well. So that's, the lack of that is the only real problem with this album. So Social Score basically gets like a 3 out of 10 just because one of their singles was not on this project in the re-release. And then on top of that, you know, the one single that they did have is one, it's there's not many songs that are as good as that, so that's kind of the thing. But there were 2 music videos and that sort of stuff, so it is what it is. But that other song that they snipped probably needed to be on this re-release. So 5 out of 10.